Alright, so just a little editor's note before the video starts. This whole tutorial works for any kind of headset. I did it on Index, but it does work on Quest and it should work for Vive as well. You'll be able to correctly reference the tutorial from how I did it on Index to Quest or Vive. It doesn't really matter. Don't worry. I would appreciate it if you watch the whole video, as there is some important information near the end. I will also leave information down below in the description for how you could contact me, like my Twitch, my Discord server. If you have any extra questions, you can leave them in a comment or DM me over Discord or text me in my server or find me on my stream. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the video and I hope it is easy enough to understand. Thank you and enjoy.
Hi, this is Zoomies. I'm here to kind of show you how to use Easy Offset to get yourself decent controller settings. I will explain every part into a certain depth of Easy Offset, like basic position rotation, position auto, swing benchmark direct, and room offset. They're all fairly simple to explain. Starting off, we're going to start with the auto stuff. This stuff is great. It's amazing that the developers made this. It gets you pretty decent controller settings for somebody who doesn't know how to make any, but it is not perfect. So I usually prefer to use the manual stuff, which is right down center here, as it is more precise and you are able to figure out where your curve is at and other things as well. But also to compare, we are going to use the auto stuff for my right hand and we are going to manually tune my left hand. And I'll show you how much more precise a human being can be as opposed to these. So as the videos down here state, you can use the B button or pick whatever button you want to use, I guess, or actually I guess not, that's whatever. Use the B button. You can also use your free hand. Just press B button here and that still works if you turn this on, but I prefer to do it with the hand that I'm using. So we're just going to do a little doorknob thing. It lines up your hand and then you're going to do a wave. What this does is sets your pivot point, which is this little black dot right here. And that's where all of your swing comes from. It will position this pivot point to be exactly where your wrist is, so when it's moving, it does not move throughout this grid. Of course, it's not super perfect. It's moving through 2 blocks of the grid. I'm not sure if you can see, but as this pivot point moves, it moves through this grid, which lights up, which is really cool. So let's see if we can get a better one really quick, a better position, and then we are going to do the little wave and then the twist once again, and then I'll finish off with the wave because why not. That looks a whole lot better. It's keeping that pivot point inside that one little square inside that grid, which is really good. So you'll see when we twist, this stays still, but this does not, and that's not something we want to have. So that's where you go to rotation auto, where you do the same exact thing, except this, we're going to try to get this to stop moving. So all you have to do is a doorknob movement here, and it will calibrate and figure out where you're actually going to be swinging, and it'll stop that from moving around too much. As you can see, it's not completely perfect, but, you know, it gets the job done. So we're going to go into a level really quick. It'll be an ACK map. You can do speed maps too. Some people prefer to view their things through speed maps. It does show a more raw curve, but I like to view it through ACK maps, which shows more thought. So we can see the difference between my left and my right.
Circles that I run in seem so lonely now. Day's a gift, yeah.
So you'll be able to immediately notice that my right looks so much straighter than my left. If you look in the bottom right corner of my screen, that's where you're going to be able to see how the curve of your sabers is. On index, it seems like I have a pretty big inward curve on my left hand. And this is with default settings on my left, and of course the auto settings on my right. Alright, so immediately you'll be able to notice from my Beat Savior data, which is very helpful, that my accuracy on my right is a heck of a lot better than my left. There was so much curve on my left that I couldn't accurately hit the blocks, like at all. It was very, very hard. And also due to the curve, it actually takes away from your swing angles, so my before cut is also pretty bad. You're not getting the maximum amount, or you're not using the maximum amount of your saber when you have curve, so there is less swing angle. So we're going to go back, and we're finally going to set a swing benchmark. This is going to be the start of me doing the manual part of the video. So basically, I had done a swing benchmark before, and those are flashbacks of past failed bits of the video. You can start just by holding B and just swinging. This shows you a ton of information. It's not all completely accurate, just as a disclaimer. So don't take this all as gospel. But what this shows you right here, just as a start, this shows you how much your wrist moves while you're swinging. This shows your saber wobble and how your saber swings kind of converge and how straight they are and all that sort of stuff. This shows your swing bias. So this is where the middle of your swing is shown. If your swing is too low, you are way more likely to underswing top row. And if it's too high, then you are way more likely to underswing bottom row. So you always want to kind of get this like anywhere between like this and this margin. It really doesn't matter if you get it perfect, because as I said, taking this as gospel is not necessarily a great idea. This shows your curve. So this shows where your wrist is compared to where the tip of your saber is. So like when we did this, it shows the movement of the end. This is multiplied as, you know, the point gets longer. So by the time it hits here, our wrist is like, 3.3 degrees, whatever. This is not completely accurate. This is completely within the margin of error that is allowed. I would say is like 5 to 7 degrees. So you shouldn't have to pay attention to that too much. This shows how wide our saber wobble is. You want to get that down as much as you possibly can. This is trained by getting saber control and such, so that doesn't necessarily apply to this. And then this just shows your whole swing angle and whatnot. So it's generally self-explanatory. To get the manual stuff started, you would start with a swing benchmark and you would set your reference. Well, that's usually how I would do it. So we are also going to set a swing benchmark for this. You don't need to do it for too long. I'd recommend at least like 5 seconds or so of swinging. Just make it, somewhat calm, but don't do it too slow, and set your reference. What this does is it sets the axis upon which you swing. So when I swing like this, you'll see that this circle stays fairly still, and you can kind of tell like this is just how you swing and whatever. Default settings compared to what we saw before, which was the auto settings. The curve is humongous. This hasn't changed much. I think it's smaller. And our saber wobble is huge because everything's just completely off. We also have a downwards bias, just like the other one. So we are going to go to position first. Position you always want to set first, because if you set your curve first, and then go to your position, you're just going to mess up your curve. Or go to rotation, you're just going to mess up your rotation settings. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to replicate what we found in the automatic settings, or position auto. So we're going to find where the heck our wrist is, and we're going to get this dot right on our wrist so we can keep it from, moving around. So you start off, obviously, with a doorknob. And you can kind of figure that this looks a bit to be a bit too low. And also when you're doing the doorknob, you want to start off like how you would when you're prepared to swing, and then you just turn. So you can see that when you're turning that the pivot point is somewhere around here, so we're going to move this to the left. We'll move it by a full centimeter, see what happens. So now, as you can see, this moves around a lot less already. So you can go slow and kind of see where this dot moves. You can see it's a little bit too far to the right still, and it's slightly low. So we're going to raise our position Y by a little bit. And that shouldn't be much, and we're going to move this to the left by also a little bit. See how much better that looks. So we finally have gotten this to the point where it stays within the grid. There's a bit of movement still. You'll also find that creating controller settings by yourself manually takes a lot longer, but it is a bit more rewarding, as you will be able to just get perfect settings yourself rather than relying on the auto settings. The auto settings, again, are good, but they aren't perfect. So this is a little low and a little bit more to the left. And look at that. That looks very good. So now that we found where our wrist is, we are going to try to get this so this dot does not move at all. So when I swing, like the little wave that we did, we don't want that dot to move. Yeah, literally at all. So what we are going to figure out, we are going to move this forward. That's where Z position comes in, because it seems like it's a bit behind our wrist. Now it's a bit in front. Still slightly in front, and move this to the left. Now that looks a lot better. So you'll see that this wasn't perfect. This seems to be a lot more stable. Now that it's much more stable, we are going to move on to rotation. Rotation is where you handle your curve and such. So this might take a little bit longer to find, because you're going to have to go through and identify what kind of curve you have. I can obviously already see that I have an inward curve. And you can tell when you have an inward curve, because when you're playing, yes, it curves inward at the ends, but pay attention to where the ends are going. If it's mainly going this way, inside, that's where your curve is. If it's going just outside like this, and you see just the ends of your saber pointing outward, then you got outward curve. If you have outward, you're going to put it more inward. If you have inward, you're going to put more outward. Self-explanatory, of course, but I just wanted to get that out there. So we have quite a bit of outward curve, so we're going to move this in by a lot. And we're going to see how that looks. Everything looks a bit straighter, but there's still a little bit of inward curve. So this looks a lot better. It still feels inward. Also, after you get a lot of experience in this, you'll be able to feel where your saber position is and what kind of curve you have. And then also, going back to this, don't forget the bias that there is. So bias is fixed by using balance, which points your saber up or down, depending on where. We had a downwards bias, so we're going to set this up by like 5. And I'll show you in swing benchmark really quick how much this kind of improves it. So as you can see, you got this line down here. Our swing bias is bad because we're going to underswing everything on the top row, it seems. So now when I do the swing benchmark, it goes up. And now look, it looks a lot better. And, you know, now this is basically within that margin of error where you kind of want to have it like between here and like here. I would say, you know, maybe between 15 and 20 degrees up and down. So, you know, it's pretty simple. We're going to go back to rotation. We're also going to view like this. So notice how none of it moves here. That's another indicator of, you know, where kind of like how your saber is and, you know, what kind of curve you're going to have. We're going to move this in. You can go off this and we'll go in and I'll show you kind of how that looks as well. You can keep your balance up, but for the sake of showing and comparing and trying to copy the auto rotation and position, we're just going to continue with that. Alright, so this looks good. This looks pretty comparable to this. There's a lot more movement on that side than there is on this side. But anyway, we'll go back into this and I'll show you kind of the difference. You'll be able to see in the bottom right corner of my screen.
What is this? What have we found? The circles that I run in seem so lonely now. Day's a gift, yeah, somehow. Still I'm running round this town to pin it down. But I keep holding my pace through impossible days. The void keeps calling my name. It's the only way to get through.
Alright, so immediately you'll notice that, you know, my left hand has made a considerable improvement. You'll see that there's a bit of underswing. This is totally fixable. If you ever see underswing going through, you know, either of your hands, this can be fixed through settings. That doesn't necessarily mean that your settings are the issue. This is something you kind of want to be careful with because this can screw with your accuracy as well. To fix that, you go to position and you just set your Z offset forward. And what this does, it extends your saber and, you know, literally just moves it forward across this axis. Wherever your saber is pointing, it'll move it across this, and it'll completely ignore your Z position. It does not move across the Z position whatsoever, so don't worry about messing anything up. You will have no curve still if you had no curve before. It just moves your saber forward, and that allows you to get a little bit more swing angle once you're moving things forward. So, you know, don't worry about that. You know, it's whatever. This will allow me to create a, you know, higher swing angle. It will reduce my underswing, but it also increases the amount of saber wobble you will have, which can reduce your accuracy as well. So you want to be careful and you don't want to overdo this at all, because sometimes, I'm not blaming you, but it might just be your fault. So don't worry about that. But now that we've kind of gone through this, and I've given you a basic overview, I'll go through all the extra stuff. Basic, you know, it's nothing special. It's the same thing as position, but you only got your Z offset, which handles, of course, your swing angle and stuff. Swing benchmark, we already went through that. It gives you all this, which is very nice, very cool. You can take that into account, but again, you take this with a grain of salt, as it is not 100% accurate. Direct is, I assume, this is for people who use Saber Tailor and they're more familiar with this, but yeah, this is for people who are more familiar with Saber Tailor. Room offset. Now, this is if you want to do the electrostats thing or little maiden thing, and you just can hold the B button and just move yourself forward. Just go like, hello, set your height or whatever, just kind of fly all over the place. You can use these back buttons for any mistakes you make. I probably should have stated that in the first part of the video, but if you ever make a mistake, these back buttons are your best friend. There's also forward buttons that will, switch you back if you go like, oh, that's too far. If you go into a level with a mistake made and then you come back, this will not save you. So you got to make sure that what you're doing is either right or you should be able to know how to fix it. So it's whatever. It's up to your own discretion. Just be careful. That's generally everything. You can get more precise settings on this than you can with this. This might have looked a little bit better because it takes multiple times to go and come back doing it manually than it does with the auto. Auto, you really only have to do once. But you could even mix it together, to be honest. That would actually get most of the work done. But if you wanted to do it from the ground up, I showed you how to do it from the ground up. If you want to do it with the auto and just stick with that and everything else is too much work, that's also perfectly fine. If you want to mix the two together, that might be the most time-effective way. But yeah, that's basically that. And that's really how Easy Offset is done. If I left anything out, I sincerely apologize. This is kind of how I taught myself to do Easy Offset. And I made my own settings from the ground up. If you ever want to save your configuration, you can just go here and just put a name for it and save it. And there you go. So now it's right there. You can find this preset. You can send your configuration to people or find it in your Beat Saber folder under user data easy offset. And you'll be able to grab it from there if you wanted to send it anywhere or back it up. So yeah, it's pretty simple from there. And yeah, that's basically that. I hope this helped. If you have any more questions, please let me know. I also stream on Twitch, and I do controller settings for other people that don't want to do them themselves. Don't worry, it's completely free. I love to help. So, that's that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a great, amazing day/night. Peace out.